I remember I had lost my second amateur fight, and I was like, that's it, I'm done, I hate this, I'm not doing this ever again. And then my teammates were like, stop it, and I like cried for like a week and was so mad at myself. And then I came back to the gym and I was like, I'm gonna be a world champion. I'm gonna be a world champion. And that was all that mattered to me, was becoming a pro fighter and becoming a world champion. And I remember I would stay in the gym till 10 o'clock at night and shadow box in the mirror and just see a world champion. That's all I saw. I didn't see anything else. And that was kind of where my focus was. I think that after that loss, knowing that I can overcome it and get through it, and I had to get better, was my turning point to where I could do this. Growing up in Chicago, it was pretty tough. We would get shot at. There were constant gang fights and, you know, bottles being thrown and group fights. There were a lot of those. So yes, there was, you know, definitely on my mind. My friends were dying, getting shot or killed, and, you know, watching people get beat severely, like to almost death. Growing up in like the house parties I would go to and things like that. So yes. In the beginning of my life, it was pretty tough. Both of my parents were addicted to drugs. My family has kind of just been plagued with drug addiction, and so there was a lot of drug use, a lot of alcohol abuse, parties, and you know, growing up I saw a lot of that kind of stuff.
Come on. 3 more, dig. Turn that foot. Yes. That's it.
Once I got about 9, 10 years old, my dad took me. He was clean. He had gotten clean and was working hard, and it was just him and I growing up from then on. That was tough for me. That was a tough time in my life, being split up from my mom. I think that I was kind of split up from my mom my whole life. We were constantly being taken away and given back, and I always protected my mom. You know, she wasn't available, you know, emotionally available for me as a kid, and so I always wanted to be with her, and that was really hard to leave my mom. And then when I moved with my dad, my sisters went to other family members' houses, and so it was just him and I missed my sisters. I didn't have my sisters growing up, so I was always yearning for a family. So my dad kind of figured out and knew that I was hanging out with the wrong crowd, and he knew that something was up, and so he needed to put me into a program to keep me busy or to teach me discipline while he was working, just because he had to work, and it was just him and I. And so we found a gym in our local neighborhood in Cicero, Combat Doe is the name of it, with Master Bob Shermer. And I just remember sitting in his office the first day, and he was like, I'm going to teach her discipline. I'm going to teach her respect. I'm going to teach her, you know, and how to fight as well, and teach her how to deal with her issues and her anger. Because I was always an angry kid. I was always really upset and mad. That's kind of how I dealt with anything in my life, was just anger. And so I was like, oh God, this guy's telling me he's going to teach me discipline and make me do push-ups and all this craziness. And so my dad put me in, and he really liked Master Bob and what he had to say and what he would offer us. And so I started and I hated it. I didn't like it. I was being told what to do. I had to do push-ups when I didn't listen, which was always, so I was always doing push-ups. And then just one day I remember a woman telling me, stop being so prissy, get tough, because I didn't like to get hit. And I was like, okay, you're right, I'm gonna get tough. I'm gonna get tough. And once I learned how to be tough and be fearless, it was over. I just like started to really love the training, and then I kind of learned and developed a way to use that as an outlet.
Go! Land them, good targets, come on! There you go!
Being married to a heroin addict, he would constantly steal my rent money. I was paying the bills at this time. He would steal rent money. He stole all my gold, like all my jewelry, and would sell it for drugs. And so on this particular day, wanted drugs. And I had a full-time job. I was working at the airport. I just finished my program as a medical assistant and was hoping to go on to get my RN and go to school for RN. And he wanted money. I wouldn't give him money. And so he decided to rob people, and I was with him. And I was like, this is so stupid. You're so stupid. But I was there, so I was just as stupid. And when the time came, of course, the police catch him, and I was there, and I would not tell on him. And that was why I got in trouble. Not because I robbed anybody, not because I needed the money or I was on drugs. It was because I was loyal. And I was loyal to my family. I was loyal to the people that were important to me, and I cared for them. And so because of that, they charged me as well. And so I had to go to jail. I was in jail for 2 weeks, and it was the worst 2 weeks of my life. I would say it was the darkest place I've ever been in my life, emotionally and spiritually. Like having your freedom taken from you, and then being surrounded by real criminals. You know, I'm in Cook County, one of the worst jails in America, and just kind of seeing like these women that were on drugs and just all the other issues. All I could do was just cry and ask God, why am I here? You know, and it was funny because the ladies would be like, you're making me cry. Every time anybody would come near me, all I did is cry. And they were like, I can't be around you. All you do is make me cry. And so like everyone kind of stood away from me because I would cry all the time. And I just would remember calling my dad constantly and like, please, Dad, get me out, and begging him. And he did. He put up $20,000 and had to get me out of jail. Yes, it was insane. I just knew from that point on that I didn't want to be involved in the gang life. I was not going to be a drug addict. I didn't want to be married to this man that was giving, you know, this is the life I was living. But I didn't know how to change. This was all I knew. And so I just remember being so down, so depressed. I like gained a bunch of weight, and I was just stuck in this place, in this rut in my life. I was 19, 20 years old, and like knew that I could be better, knew I wanted to travel, knew I just could do better. I was fortunate enough to have my Aunt Denise, who is known as the Entourage. She's such a big part of my fight career. Come in my life. She moved back to Chicago. She had been gone for 20 years at this moment in my life, and kind of took me under her wing and taught me how to write down goals. Would ask me, what do you want to, if you could do anything in the world, if you had a genie, what would you do? And I'm like, I don't know. And she would like pick at me though, like what? And I was like, I want to travel. Okay, well, do you want to go to school? I want to go to school. I want to travel. I want to leave Chicago. And like would kind of get me to really like dream, because I didn't know how to do that. And then at one point, my dad had accidentally called the gym Combat Dome. And he talked to Master Bob's wife, and she was telling him how women's MMA was doing really well. There was Gina Carano and Tara La Rosa, and she wishes that I would come back. I was so good at this. And my dad always wanted me to go back, and so he called me and was like, guess who I just talked to? And he told me about the fight. I think it was, it had been turned to MMA, because before that it was No Holds Barred, NHB. And so I was like, MMA, and he kind of explained it to me. And so he was like, you should go. And he begged me, and I was like, I'll think about it. I was such in a dark place at this time, and lonely. And I remember like that was my outlet. That was my fighting, was like just a place that I like could grow, and I could release and be who I was unapologetically. And so I was like, I'll try, Dad. And I was working downtown Chicago at this time at a cat doctor. And I was like, I'll try. And he was like, okay, I'll pay for your first month, you know, because I was still struggling to pay my bills and kind of get my life together after all my court fees and everything, paying all that back. And so I was like, okay, I'll try. And at 21, that's when I went back to the gym. I was 165 pounds. So I fight at 115. It's a lot of weight for me. And I was like, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to lose weight. Let's see where it goes. I didn't know where it would take me. And from that day forward, I never looked back. I have used visualization and my mindset to sculpt the life that I have today. I've manifested this life. It was a dream for me to live in California, to train with pros. Like, that was the biggest dream I had 6 years ago. And I'm living that dream. And I think that most people will set their expectations low because they're fearful of achieving more. And if you just can dream the craziest thing and just put that on your wall and focus on that every day, it will come true if you give it that power. After reading some books, like the one book I quoted earlier, Relentless, it talks about being okay with your dark side, being okay with all your flaws. And I was like, oh my God, all these years I've been hiding that, I've been burying that. But that dark side is what I need in that cage, that animal instinct, that relentless mentality that I had coming from the neighborhood, you know, wanting to leave that neighborhood, having to fight for my life. I need that same mentality in my fight instead of doubting myself and wait, can I do this or should, you know, and having that mindset. And so I think because of that, I'm learning to accept myself. And the more I accept myself, the more I accept all of my flaws. I think overcoming failure, you fail every day over and over and over and over again, and to come back and just be persistent in your goals no matter what happens. Losing 2 fights in a row was something I never thought would happen in my life. I just knew I was always mentally stronger, and to have that, I think that was a really big challenge in my life, to know like, okay, I lost my fights, I got released from the biggest show that I wanted to be on. Is there anything left in this? Do I even want to do this? And it took me to go deeper, to dig deeper within myself and to find that I can do this. I do deserve my dreams. I do deserve the success that I can have. I can be a world champion, and just get right back at it, I think. I have my nieces back home and I think about them every day. They still live in that environment, that same environment that I grew up in. And to know that they're there and know that, you know, that they're being faced with the challenges that I had, that forces me to get up every single morning, to go get better, to push myself through the pain, through the sacrifices, so that I can live out this dream, so that I can achieve and become a world champion, so that I can prove to them it doesn't matter where you come from because I came from the same place. You can do anything you set your mind to.